Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. You asked and he's here at your request, Abhijit Iyer-Mitra. Today he'll be talking to us about the things that are happening in our neighbor's backyard, that is Pakistan, about Imran Khan, his UN General Assembly address, why he said what he said. Then he comes back and then he flies to China with Bajwa. It almost looks like Bajwa doesn't want to let him out of his sight. To know more about all these things, the inner palace intrigues, let's go and join Abhijit Iyer-Mitra. Abhijit, welcome to PGurus channel.
Thanks for having me again, Shri. I'm sorry you're going to have a oscillating camera every now and then because my kids are coming and irritating me during
That's fine. That's fine. They want to have their input too, and which is always
Yes, they
welcome.
do. Yes, they do. They're
Yes.
foreign policy doggies, so they're very excited to come on camera. And they thank you too for having them, for featuring them regularly on camera.
Okay, so help us unravel this puzzle called Pakistan. What happened in the UN General Assembly address? Because it was rude, it was hectoring, it was. I mean, I can find any number of words to describe what his speech was. It was not a prime ministerial speech. That much I can tell you. What happened?
Furious impotence. That's what happens. See, when you don't go anywhere, you start making a fool of yourself publicly. And that's what Imran Khan did. I mean, there's nothing to unravel out there. The man is so frustrated. Uh, and see, it was a pattern. So it wasn't just a speech, because if you look at it, there was a whole series of unfortunate incidents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not buying that the Saudis withdrew their plane. I haven't seen any verification of it, because if you look at the plane coming back, it was a private aircraft, and going by the size of the windows, it looked like a Gulfstream or something like that. But the thing is, it was the whole aura surrounding this visit, right? He goes on stage, he exceeds his time limit very considerably. 1 point focus, Kashmir, 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 RSS, fascists in India, so on and so forth. It wasn't about anything else, no other issues, nothing. Then he comes off, and if you notice a few days, I think day before or the day before that, he tweeted about how the world is ignoring Kashmir and there's zero support, and all the coverage was going to Hong Kong protesters and so on and so forth. And on the other hand, till that tweet, he was claiming that he had successfully internationalized the issue. So which one is it? Was it successfully internationalized, or was it not, that you had to put out this sad tweet? Well, clearly the answer, is that it didn't get internationalized, because all you have to date is some, let's say, Jeremy Corbyn, who has about as much chances of winning the UK election as my dogs do, and assorted loony left MPs, who not MPs, senators and Congress people putting out notice statements of concern. They're not condemnations. Not one of them is condemned. Right. And at best, you have Erdogan and Mahathir Mohamad talking about it. And, well, who take those two seriously anymore? Then what he does is, to add insult to injury, he decides to go to Iran and Saudi Arabia and claims to the rest of the world that he's going to mediate the conflict. Now, this is particularly funny because if you notice, both Iranians and Saudis have an extremely poor opinion of South Asians. The Arabs, there's a very strict race hierarchy in that country, that Arabs are on par with white people. Basically, white is everywhere, including China. White is the wannabe, the to be, the in thing in racial terms. So the Saudis want to be white, then the Chinese and the Japanese, and finally the Indians and Pakistanis. Even though the Indians are one of the higher income groups, they're seen basically as coolies that are meant to wash your toilets and build your houses. They're not somebody to be entertained at home and even treated as your equals. So Saudi Arabia will somehow consider Pakistan
I'm sorry, does this happen even in social gatherings? Like when you go to meet, say, let's say you're working as an engineer working in a Saudi Arabian company, does this kind of thing reflect in that too, like social gatherings?
It happens a lot. It happens a lot because what happens is that they don't, you don't have social gatherings. See, you have work gatherings, but I literally know hundreds of people living in Dubai, Jeddah, and Riyadh None of them have an Arab social circle. All right. On the other hand, all my white friends in Dubai have local Emirati social circles. So why is it that white people somehow have a Arab social circle and brown people don't? Right? It's a fundamental problem, but this is a societal problem in their society. But it also reflects on the leadership. So why are they going to take Imran Khan seriously in that sense? What capability does he bring on the table to mediate? I mean, the Saudis are fantastic negotiators and mediators. Look at them. They've gone from having a president who wanted to destroy them when he took over power to one who's bought into their agenda, lock, stock, and barrel, and is going hammer and tongs at Iran for them. They know they don't need you to negotiate for them, right? So if you think that you're going to negotiate
And
for them,
all this without having, hold on,
you have to overcome one sec. You have to overcome the race issue. You have to overcome the fact that they don't consider you a great negotiator. You have to overcome the fact that you have zero leverage with Iran and zero leverage with the Saudis. You have to consider the fact that your bureaucracy, your diplomacy, everything is considered far, far subpar to both the Iranians and the Saudis. Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iran was on the cusp of industrialization. The human development indices are far, far greater. Their education is far, far superior. Saudis getting way ahead of you, even though their per capita income is much higher. Who the hell is going to go to Pakistan? Who has ever seen Pakistan as a mediator anywhere in anything? So, the level of delusion is just astounding.
all this while the Saudis don't even have an army left. By the way, on that missile attack, I'm hearing some very interesting things. One of the theories put out is that it could have been an internal attack, meaning by the Shias of Saudi Arabia who might have launched those things, even though they may have got the technology from Iranians. And there's also 2 brigades of Saudi Arabia that got completely decimated by the Houthi rebels. So where is the Saudi Arabia? What is left of the Saudi Arabian army now?
So they have an army, but it's a parade army. See, they've always had a parade military in that sense. And here you have to distinguish between the Saudi Army, Navy, and the Saudi Air Force. The Saudi Air Force is actually quite good. If you remember, in the first Gulf War, they scored lots of kills against Iraqi aircraft. And since then, they basically don't. Well, in the second Gulf War, there were no Iraqi aircraft left to be shot down. It was entirely a ground offensive.
I thought Iraqis, sorry. I thought Iraqis flew some of their remaining aircraft to Iran to save them from getting bombed.
Yeah, but that was in the first war. That has nothing to do with the Saudis.
No, I know. But when you said there were no aircraft left, I thought they saved a few of those.
Yeah, but Iran isn't returning it.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Iran considered it as part of war reparations for the Iran-Iraq war and never gave it back to them.
That was a terrible thing. I mean,
so I lost my train of thought. Yeah. What were we talking about?
We were talking about him going to try and mediate between these two. Then he comes back and then he goes to China.
No, why did we get into Saudi Arabia?
Because I asked you the question. I said, you said that Saudis are very good at manipulating, and I said all this with no army, and then you started talking about
so Saudi army.
And then aircraft is pretty good. Their air force is very good. That's where we were.
So the Saudi air force is very good, because remember, in the Saudi military, there's this tradition of the princes and so on and so forth joining. Yes. They've already had training on their private aircraft, which are civilian planes, but anyway. They would have had that, and then you join. The Air Force has always kind of been seen as the cavalry. It's like the noble man will ride the horse, the ordinary man will be the foot soldier kind of thing. Right. So it's got a lot of these princes who have high net value, and therefore they can invest in value addition. The Saudi Air Force is good. I've heard the UAE Air Force from, I mean, this isn't first hand. I talk to my American Air Force buddies and they tell me this, that they find the UAE Air Force far better than the Saudi Air Force, but the Saudi Air Force isn't exactly bad. The army, on the other hand, is always a problem, because, the Saudis never account for debts. They've never accounted for their tolerance. They're a rich society that's grown rich without fighting other people. They've got other people to fight their wars for them. They've never fought their own wars. Right. So when it comes to a nasty, dirty war of attrition, like what's happening in Yemen, they can't pull it off.
Isn't
These
Rahil
two-
Sharif, I'm sorry, isn't Rahil Sharif leading that thing?
No. He's gone as some it's some token job that he's gotten as some pan something post. He's
Oh, I
not
see.
leading
So,
anything.
so it's a sinecure appointment then, of sorts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing serious. I mean, he's not going to entrust his life to Saudis. The Saudis for a long time entrusted their life to Pakistanis because they thought they were incorruptible and whatnot. And the moment they realized that Pakistanis were turning jihadi, they then removed all those Pakistani bodyguards and so on and so forth, right?
So then
that's
who's saving the skin of the Saudi king now?
It's Saudis.
Oh, I
Saudis.
see.
They trust Saudis. It's all based on a kinship network. But what happens now is, let's look at the other side, Iran. Iran has the same issues with Pakistan. You know, they don't even consider India and Pakistan to be a civilization in the first place. They're like, we're a great world civilization. We coined the first, the Cyrus seal, the seal on human rights. Our impact on world architecture, be it the dome, be it the arch, be it everything. We killed 2 Roman emperors. We did this, we did that. Who the hell are you? Where are you from? Have you even occupied? We have come and occupied your capital. We came and sacked Delhi, and you don't even know what Persia is because you haven't even touched the outer periphery of Persia. And you know, they're a very proud ancient civilization. So if you think that some joker, that too of a rump end of a rump civilization, is going to go and sell his credentials to the Iranians, you're sadly mistaken. And that, look at the caliber of Iranian diplomats. Pakistanis aren't able to get the kind of deals that Iranians are. Do you think any Pakistani diplomat would have been able to negotiate the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement with the rest of the world? Of course not. It required a certain level of finesse and all of that to do. And the Iranian military has also been way ahead. So at no level, social development, human development, Iran has almost first world human development indicators. Because in 1979, they were ahead of South Korea and Taiwan even. So there's no stretch of the imagination where they would accept mediation by Imran Khan. Of course, it's politeness in those societies that when you make an obnoxious statement, they're not going to publicly correct you. So Imran knows that. He's gone. He's made this obnoxious statement that, he's a saving messiah. He's coming and negotiating between you. And they very politely refused to contradict.
Now, if Iran is so good technologically and in their education system, then why is it that they needed India's help to build back their oil refinery infrastructure and other infrastructural projects, like Gwadar, for example? Not Gwadar, Chabahar. Yeah.
See, they didn't actually. That's the funny thing, because if you go and look at their oil refineries and things, they are way behind Western oil refineries, but their machine tooling and heavy engineering is actually better than Indian heavy engineering. What they required was an Indian cash infusion. They needed Indian liquidity. They needed Indian capital, right? And the Indian terms for that were that L&T would go and build roads out there, that Reliance would go set up its own refineries out there, and so on and so forth. So there were 2 completely different things. Actually, if you travel on Iranian roads and look at Iranian oil infrastructure, you'll be amazed how far superior they are to Indian infrastructure. The first thing you do when you land in Iran is you think back to, Times of India and Hindu headlines saying, India to build a road. And you're like, seriously, dude, we need Iranians coming here and teaching us how to build roads rather than us going there and building anything. So again, take this with a pinch of salt. The problem with India's foreign policy press is they tend to circulate press notes rather than going there and doing anything firsthand themselves.
All right. So then he comes back home, and then there is an economic crisis, and Bajwa goes and meets with all the ISI, I guess most of them, ex-ISI people who run businesses now. And Imran isn't even meeting them. And he gets a handle of where the economy is headed. And is this extension of 3 years official now, or is it still to be signed by Imran Khan?
No. It's official now. It's been granted.
Okay.
And the thing is that I don't think he understands the economy is in collapse, because his whole idea is this Mecca Medina style of governance. Everything to him goes back to this Makkah Medina style of governance, right? So basically, in that sense, that Islamic welfareism was exactly what the Jamaat-e-Islami used to do, except the Jamaat-e-Islami wasn't corrupt. He used to pick up every Tom, Dick, and Harry that was abandoning the PPP and the PML. Plus, of course, the fact that he himself realized that being this pure thing like the Jamaat-e-Islami never used to win votes. It never did, because they were so rigidly against corruption. There was no way they could get anywhere in Pakistan. So he tried that, he failed, and then he accepted army support and ended up being an army puppet in this case. So now you know exactly who's in charge when all the economists have to go meet the army. But see, there's another important tool to it, that it's finally come out in the open. The fact that the Pakistan Army and the Fauji Foundation controls about 90% of the formal economy of Pakistan.
Yes.
And you know, even the 10% that they don't control is technically linked to them, because it's the Muhajirs from India, the local landowners of Punjab and the Sindh, and the army. Between the three of them, they intermarry a lot. And so even if you own any kind of industry in Pakistan, it's highly unlikely that you're not married to an army person.
Now, so next thing, what happens is these two go to China to meet with Xi just a day before he leaves for India. What was that all about?
Look, he must have gone for reassurance and to brief Xi Jinping about what to do, what not to do, about their concerns, and so on and so forth. And you know, Xi Jinping will very politely say yes, 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 and then he'll just do what he wants to do, because ultimately China is only looking after Chinese interests, not Pakistan interests. And China doesn't see this going anywhere, because the moment it starts pushing Kashmir, you can very easily push back on Hong Kong. Don't forget that, right? And anyway, Hong Kong is much more in the news than Kashmir is. Xinjiang is much more in the news than Kashmir is.
Right.
So, you know, there's just a temporary blip in news about Kashmir. The last thing they want is stoking a conversation on human rights. So, you know, in this particular case, Imran also gets stuck with an ally. You know, America might have lots of human rights issues, but they can at least come on the world stage because they control the narrative, and with a great deal of chutzpah, they can lecture other people on human rights.
Right.
In spite of having something like, say, Guantanamo Bay. These guys can't. They just can't do it, because they know the blowback will be immediate and be quite bad in the public view. So, look, again, it's furious impotence. He's going around, the calls didn't work. The UN speech didn't work. So now he has to go individually meet people and beg. And even that isn't working. So did he get a statement out of Saudi Arabia? No. Did he get a statement out of China? No. Did he get a statement out of Iran? Especially Iran, nothing at all. So it's fine. Just ignore. He's a sad, pathetic joke.
So the last thing, there's a FATF meeting in progress, and we discussed about this at length. And you said that Turkey, Malaysia, and China would, you know, come to Pakistan's rescue and make sure that they don't get blacklisted. But I have a question. There is, right now they are on the gray list, right? And there is a dark gray list, I believe. You see that transition happening?
I don't see the transition happening. Except maybe as a negotiation, they may be put onto the dark gray list. But as of now, I just see them continuing in the gray list. Look, let's look at the positives here. They will not be ungray listed. So the, you know, that Damocles sword hanging over the head
continues to hang.
The threat is always, and it's a good threat to hang, because if you put them onto the blacklist, then there's no restraint on them going over the edge in Kashmir and ordering terrorist attacks. Whereas now, being on the grey list leaves room for maneuver. That when there is a terrorist attack, if there is a big terrorist attack, and there probably is going to be one, then you can put them on the blacklist, and that's the threat you hang over the head.
Now, last question, Abhijit. When you were talking about this, it just struck me. For the longest time, about 40% of all the foreign exchange happening in and out of Pakistan is supposed to be Hawala, very, very high number. Do you think it is still the same? Because one of the brothers is no longer alive. The other one is cooling his heels in a US prison.
Look, we know that the Pakistan, it's not hawala, it's an informal economy, right? A lot of it is hawala because there's this terrorization, there's this whole conflict economy that's spawned up in Pakistan since the 80s, at least. But we have to separate all these aspects. There was this paper that came out, if you remember, which showed a high correlation between zakat donations and spikes in terrorism, because it's linked to the price of silver. Zakat is linked to 612 grams of gold. The price, it's pegged to a silver price. And every time the zakat donations go up, automatically what happens is terrorist organizations, front organizations, the charity fronts, end up getting a lot of money extra, which they then plow into terrorist attacks. So it's actually the charity donations over Eid and things like that that fund terrorism, one. Two, you have the hawala economy and you have the informal economy. The informal economy is because it's mostly a cash-based economy. So just because a guy withdraws 100 rupees from the ATM and then pays for mutton or pan or cigarettes doesn't make it black. It just
that doesn't make it black.
Informal,
no. Exactly. I was talking about the foreign exchange.
One second. Yeah. It's a informal economy. The problem is that because of a lack of banking penetration, the cash economy is so great, and the lack of rule of law and police protection means that everything becomes a criminalized transaction. That every transaction, that when you pay something to a shopkeeper, he has to pay hafta to the local gunda. That local gunda is one way or another linked up to your local madrasa, which is linked up to your local terrorist organizations, charity arm, and so on and so forth. So there's the informal economy, a large part of which feeds into the terror economy, which mostly transacts through hawala. So that being the case, I don't see anything happening to Pakistan because a majority of its economy is in the informal sector, which will carry on irrespective of what happens in the formal sector. So, we have to temper expectations. Part two, remember, when the FATF blacklists you, it's a recommendation. There is no automaticity in sanctions or things like that come about. It's just that rating agencies then make your borrowing rate much higher.
Right.
Everything becomes a much higher risk giving anything to you. You expose yourself to being sued to being prosecuted for terrorism, for giving money to something that may end up in a terror activity.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of fascinating stuff about Pakistan and where it is headed. I'm sorry, I keep asking you this last question. One more thing. Now, there is talk about Imran Khan being eased out and a certain Maulana being eased in as the next prime minister. What are your thoughts on that? Maulana Fakr something.
I don't think they'll go for a Maulana because remember, the image that the Pakistan army wants to project of Pakistan is one of a modern, forward-looking Pakistan, right? They literally have ads in newspapers for women who wear skirts and are not afraid to shake hands with men to become part of the nuclear establishment that they make celebrities out of, who go and, say, what Talibanization? What Islamization? Look, I smoke, I drink, I don't wear the burqa, I shake hands with men. Therefore, Pakistan is a liberal society. And classic example of this, of course, is Maliha Lodi and Shireen Mazari and co like that. They're the biggest Taliban supporters you'll ever find. So a Maulana does not suit their agenda. So do they want to get rid of Imran Khan? Yes. Do they see him as a liability now? Yes, because he can't deliver the goods. On the other hand, do they see a Maulana taking over? Absolutely not. Is Imran Khan going to go? Yes. Is a Maulana going to replace him? Absolutely not.
So who's the substitute then?
I don't know. Maybe Shireen Mazari.
The
first prime minister to wear psychedelic purple hair.
Well, thank you very much, Abhijit. We'll be back with more such interesting conversations. And viewers, please remember to subscribe to our channel. And also, if you could donate, that'll be much appreciated. Thank you very much.